Okay, this video has been requested, so I'm making another to do an overview of the final project. So let's go look at that real quick. So in here in the final project, there are a whole bunch of links that are going to help you. What I'm going to show you is supposed to just give you an idea. You should create your own website. This should not be a copy of what I show you, but hopefully this just gives you some ideas. So you'll just be creating a 5-page website with some pre-designed documents and then like a kind of a evaluation of yourself at the end. So these should all help. This will help with accessibility checking. You should include some of these font awesome icons somewhere in it, right? There's different icons you can include. You should be using some Google Fonts, which you've done previously. Just ignore the hosting. You don't need a host. Since we're distance education, you'll just zip all of the files you need, all pictures, all HTML, CSS files, your report, everything. You'll zip all into one folder and turn that in. Any help you need that you can't seem to find in my tutorials or video screencasts, if you go to the CSS and HTML links here, that'll take you to W3 Schools, and there's links and examples for everything. You can even hit try it yourself and you can experiment with it. And inside of the HTML one, there are even things for help on laying out a page and responsive design. They have help for everything, so use that. When you go to mock up your site, here are the links for that. You're going to need to use Adobe Color, which I'll show you in just a second, and then either Figma or Mockingbird to make a layout for your site. If you need to find pictures or things like that to include, you can go here to this link where photos and videos are, and go down to things like graphics, and you can find stock photos and different things like that here, and search for things. Beyond that, what else do we have? Different responsive design helps, so it can change your site at different sizes is there. Some student examples if you want to see them. All of my screencast tutorials are here on just about everything, so use those for help. So there's 5 parts to this thing. Part number 1 is to design it before you build it. So you first need to make some sort of a page mock-up. Figma is pretty good. I've used this in the past. Here's a mock-up I made of a client site, right? You should make a mock-up, see what your site's going to look like, and then design the site after. Or you can use Mockingbird. It's a lot more simple. It is not going to save what you do, so make sure you screenshot it because you need to turn that file in. But you'll hit try creating websites for free. And you can change anything on this page, right? So maybe we're not going to have a video here. We're not going to have any of this stuff here. So you can just delete it all and start completely from scratch. Or if there's something there you want to use, you can use that. So maybe my site's going to have a site title, and whatever that site title is going to be, you'll put it there. You know, maybe you have a big opening paragraph that comes across the page here. Maybe below this paragraph is your navigation. So we'll go to add element. You'll find your navigation. So maybe it's going to look like this. So I drop this in, and then maybe following that, I've got, a big picture here, and then I've got a set of text that sits alongside of it, and you get the idea. So you're basically making the same layout that you're going to use. You'll screenshot those for each of your pages, and you'll keep them and you'll use them. After that, you'll then go to Adobe Color, and you'll pick the color scheme that you'll actually use on your website. So from here, you can go through and, there's different layouts. Maybe you want to use 3 main colors. You can go to Triad, and you're like, I don't like those. So just mess with these. You're like, oh, okay, I like this. So decide the colors you want. You'll screenshot this page as well, and you'll use it. You'll actually use these hex color codes as the colors in your website, and you'll turn this in with your website as well. Okay, so once you've done that, you can actually build your site, which I'll show you in just a second. So that is part 2. Part 3 says to publish it to the internet. You're not going to do this part. Like I said, you're just going to zip it all together in a folder at the end. When you're completely finished, you're going to write a 1-page report. Okay, and then you'll put all that and all those files in one folder, and you'll turn it in. That report will, include things like what you learned, what you're most proud of, what you do if you had more time, and then just tell me why you did certain things with your colors or your designs. So then from there, right, you're going to pick a theme. Any school-appropriate theme is fine. It does not have to be this one. You're going to need 5 total pages: a home page, a contact page that has a form, and then 3 pages that have kind of different layouts and contents and things like that. Your header and your navigation should be in the same place on every page, and you should try to include images. Make sure you use your alt tags, use semantic tags, header, footer, nav, all those things like we've been doing. You also need to make sure that it has responsive design. Your page should look different at different sizes, phone versus desktop or whatever. And so you can reference this. So from here, let's look at how to make a page. Once again, just to tell you, I'm going to show you an example. Do not copy that example. That's just an example. Come up with your own layout and create it. I'm just going to give you an idea how to quickly make one. But come up with your own. Don't copy mine. If you need layout ideas, this link's pretty good. You can go here, and it'll show you a whole bunch of different page layout designs, how you might want to put a page together, things like that. So you can check that site as well. So let's go ahead and jump into brackets and look at this. Once we've got brackets open, I'm going to go and create a new folder for the entire project. So here you can see I've created a folder called Final Project. And inside of that, I've created a folder called Images, where I'll put any images I use for the entire site. I've also already included my color scheme, which I'll be using for my colors. And I've got my mock-ups for my home page that I've created. I'll do something simple like this. And my projects page. And I've also got one for contact page. So you want to create a different one for each page that will have a different design. So from there, we just start building. So let's create the home page to start off with. So we'll want to create a header up here on top. We'll have a navigation. I'll have a big area, big main section to hold all the content. And then I'll have a left column, and then maybe an aside over here to put some pictures and some links and some things like that. So I'm going to go ahead and start building the skeleton for this site. I'm actually going to take this and snap it to this side and this to this side, so I can kind of see what I'm doing here as I go. So I'm going to open a folder, that whole entire folder. So let's do the Final Project folder so I can reference anything I need to in there at any point. I'm going to start a new file, and we'll save this as, make sure it's going into the Final Project folder. This will be index, this will be the home page, so it should be called index.html. And that's now open. You can then type in your skeleton, or you can use your extension here and go ahead and put a full skeleton inside of that page. You're not going to probably need this JavaScript piece, so you can go ahead and delete that. And we will link up a style sheet here later, so I'm going to leave that for now. So first thing you want to do is give your project a title. Call this Digital Media, and this is the home page. And so from here, I'm going to start putting in the main blocks. So like I said, up here on top, I'm going to have a header. And then below that, we are going to have the navigation. And below that, I'll have a big main for all the section content. And inside of main, I'm going to have a left. We'll put a section. And then over on that right side, we'll put an aside. And then at the very bottom of the page, we've got a footer. So from there, we can start putting content in. So my header says Digital Media. And then inside of my navigation section, I will need to put an unordered list with some list items. First one is home. And we're going to go ahead and put links around these to start off with. So I'm going to put an A tag. So this whole list item will live inside of a link. And now we're going to tell it where to go. So hypertext reference equals. So this will go to, when we click on it, it's going to go to the page called index.html. Alright, so we'll go ahead and duplicate this. We need 5 of those. So our second page is about. Third page is called classes. Fourth page is called projects. And fifth is contact. And once again, remember, yours will probably say something entirely different. Make sure your site is different than And each of these pages, I haven't created them yet, but I will in the future, and I already know I'm going to name them the same as these. So I'm just going to call this one About, call this one Classes, this one will be Projects, and this one will be Contact. And as long as I name those pages the same thing, they should automatically link up. So I can go ahead and save that. You can see I've got those now in my navigation section. Next is main, which we can leave alone for the moment. And then we have got a section and an aside, which will also leave the content out of for the moment. I already know what my footer is going to say. So let's go ahead. It says copyright LHS Digital Media 2020. So we need to put in a paragraph. And I'm going to put in a character entity. So we need an and sign, and then I'm going to put in copy and a semicolon, put a space, now put in LHS Digital Media, and then 2020. We go ahead and save that. And if I go ahead and launch this page, here's how it looks. Not much to it, it's just some simple HTML, and we're going to start building the blocks and the color now. So next thing that we're going to do is create a style sheet. You only want one style sheet, one for the entire site, entire 5 pages, which means you might need to give things different class names or things like that if necessary. So we're going to go File, New, and we're going to do File Save As, and save this as style.css, and make sure it's in the right folder, which it looks like it is. So we'll save that there, and now we're going to start building out these other things. So remember, we've got a header section, a nav, a main, a section, an aside, and a footer. So let's start here on the header. So I'm going to come up here to Style, and we're going to talk to the header. And the header, let's give it a background color. And not everything's going to have a background color, but I like to use that so I can see what I'm doing, and then I remove the stuff I don't need later. So we're going to put in a background color, and this already does have one that I'm going to leave on it, so let's go ahead and pick the right one to start off with. Let's do a light gray, and semicolon, great. Width, let's do a height, and we're going to give that maybe 80 pixels. And if I go ahead and save that and look at it right now, we'll see what it does. Now, it's not working yet. Why is it not working? Because we haven't linked it up inside of the index page. So let's go back to index. And right here, we need to tell it which style sheet to use, which we have not done. That style sheet, in my case, is called style.css. So right here in the head tags, in this link, we're going to go and put in style.css. If I save that, you'll notice it automatically is working now. So we've got that gray bar up here on the top. And we're going to then need to start making it look more like this. So let's go ahead and jump back over to here. Okay, next thing I need to do is talk to this. So let's go into my header and then H1. That means it will only apply these rules to the H1s that are inside of the header. Which do we have? Let's see, not yet. We don't have that as an H1, so let's make that an H1. And by default, you can see it applies some CSS to it, and it's already larger, which works out great. So now we'll come in here, we'll talk to the H1 inside the header section. We're going to give it a color, and let's see which color we're going to give it. So if we go back into the pictures here, we can look at my color scheme and see what to use. So let's see, what shall we use? I think we should use this one. So it's 17A2FF for a color. So hashtag 17A2FF. And we save that and go look at it, and you can see it's already starting to take shape. Okay, next I want the size to be bigger. So we're going to do font size, and we're going to do 30 pixels. Nope, bigger than that. Let's go 50 pixels. Great, and we're going to center it. So we'll do a text align center, and we're going to do a font family. and you will need to do this as well. So let's go to Google Fonts for a moment and find something that will work well for your site. So let's make this full screen. Let's see, I like this one. So right, you can go by category if you want to. You know, you can take all this stuff off. Whoops. And see just specific ones, and you can sort and filter and do all those different kind of things if you'd like to. So just find whatever it is you think will work well for your site. You can add more than one, which I think I'll do while I'm at it. So for all of my headings, I'm going to have them look like this. So from here, decide which of these you like, which will work for you. I'm going to go with this regular right here. I'm going to select this style, so I'm going to add it to this side. I'm going to also go over here to the one for my heading, and I'm going to, I like this one right here, I'm going to select this style as well. So I should be able to use both of those now. If I come here to embed, I can then take this and copy that, and inside of my brackets, inside the head tags, I can paste that there and save it. And then anytime I want to use that on the site, I'm going to want to reference this, and I want to use that as the font family. So I just copied that. Let's go ahead and close these. Put this back over to the side. So inside the style sheet, right here where it says font family, I paste that in. And so now as long as I have this and I have that link to that font, it should work just fine. And you can see that it does work, and my heading looks like it's working. So let's go ahead and refresh that, and there it is. All right, so heading looks fine for now, great. And now we move on to the navigation. Now let's work with the navigation. From here, if you need extra help, you can go onto our Canvas page and look at the CSS menu. That'll give you an example on all the code that you need to use. And there's a lot of other videos that will help with this project as well. So for now, I'm just going to go ahead and put in a comment so I know that this is going to deal with my navigation. And make sure to use comments in your code, but I'm going to go ahead and paste this. And you'll notice that right off the bat, it does something to my navigation. It's all inline now, but it's not working right, and that's because the code that I pasted in is actually different than my HTML. So beware if this happens to you. I actually put my links around my list items inside of my code, whereas the code that I just pasted in has them opposite. It has the list items around the links. So I just need to reverse some of this stuff. So if I go ahead and put ALI, you'll notice that is now starting to work. And if I swap these two out and put ALI, you can see that's now working. So the hover state works. The text decoration is not working because I need to tell the links not to have a text decoration. So let's get rid of that line. And we'll go down and put in ULA. Do text decoration of none. And you can see now none of those have anything over them, and they're actually functioning like a navigation would. Now I actually want to make those spread out quite a bit farther, so I'm going to put in 24 pixels. On the list itself, I'm going to put a background color in of blue for the moment so I can see it, and you can see where all those sit. So if I do a text align center, I can now get those all in the very center, right? And I'm going to go ahead and take the background color off of this now and go ahead and save it. So now we have a functional navigation right in the middle of the page. It's not the right color, so I would then want to go in to my final project, check my color scheme, and see which color I'd like to use. So I'm going to go ahead and put in these colors here. So 326080. Right here. And when I save that, you can see that that now works. They still are going red. So I need a different color. So now we'll have it hover and turn into this little lighter color, 0C5280. And you can see it's working, but it's not hovering very light. So I might need to choose a different color. So we'll go back in and pick a different color, 17A2FF. And now you can see it hovers and it looks pretty good. Now we can move on to building the content sections. So if we look down now, we can see I've got this section here, and there is like a section on this side. There's an aside that floats over to this side. So let's go start putting those things in as well. You can also see that it says home here, so we should probably put that in at the top. So we'll go in and we'll put in another comment in the code. And then from there, let's go see what we named things. So we have a main section, which is the whole thing. And then inside of that, we've got a section. And then we'll have an aside that floats over to the other side. So go in here and we'll talk to the main. And give it a background color temporarily so I can see what I'm doing. And we'll give it a width and a height. So we'll just give it a height for now. It needs to be fairly large so it can contain everything. So let's go ahead and put in 400 pixels. Call that good for the moment. Then the next section is actually, it's a section. We'll do the same thing with that. I'm going to just copy and paste this. And this is going to be, we'll give it light blue, great. And it's taking up the whole size, which I don't want it to do. So I'm actually going to give this a width of 75%. And you can see that other piece on the side of it. And then I'm going to take this and copy this. We will then go in and rename this aside and give this a new color. And you can see it's down here below it instead of next to it, and that's because the width of each of them is 75, and that's more than 100%. So as long as we change this one to 25, it now totals 100, and they will float up next to each other. The last thing that we'll need to do is format the footer, and then we can start putting content in. So let's go give a comment here for the footer rules. We'll talk to the footer. And the first thing we'll do is give it a background color that is similar to the one for the header, which is light gray. And then let's give it a width or a height of 40 pixels. And then let's also center the text. So we'll now talk to the paragraph that lives inside of the footer. And we'll do a text align center. And we are now ready to start putting in content into our layout. First thing that we'll do is go and look at the layout. Again, you can see it says home here. There's a paragraph, a picture here, and then over on the floating column or the right column, there's a picture and a list. So we'll add all of those things. I've already went ahead and saved an image inside of my images folder in my site folder called equip. So we'll use that picture for both spots. So we'll go into our home page in the index.html file, and we're going to go inside of main, which is this whole section, and then we'll go in the section on the left side. And we'll open that up, and we'll put in an H2. And then after that, below that, we're going to put in a paragraph of text. And if you need some filler text, you can just go type in Lorem Ipsum, go to their site, and I'm just going to generate one paragraph and you can just copy and paste and use that as filler text. So we'll use that, we'll paste that in, and now we've got some text. Next thing I want to do is put in the image. So if we go down below the paragraph, we're going to go to image, img, src, equals quotes. We're going to close that right off the bat, and then in between those, that lives in the images folder, and it's called equip.jpg. So there it is. You can see that's too big, so we could go ahead and do this in the CSS, or we could do it here. So I'm going to give it a width of 400, and you can see it's hanging over the edge of the content, and that is because we've told this to be 400 tall, and it's now doesn't have enough room. So we'll go in and we'll remove this from here, as well as from these two sections as well. And you can see that by doing that, that allows this to automatically stretch to 100% of the content. But you can also see that in taking out the height on the aside, it made it collapse. So once we add content back in there, it should show back up. So let's go into our HTML and go into the aside and add an image. We'll go in the images folder, we'll put in the same image, and you can see that it shows up. It's definitely too big, so we will put in 100, 100%. That fills up the whole side. In fact, let's put in 100 for now, and then we're going to go ahead and put a list below that. So we'll put in some UL tags for unordered list. And if I go ahead and save that and copy that, hit Control D a few times to duplicate it, and you can see it's now stretching to the size that it needs to be as it pushes it down. But that's allowing the footer to float up. So maybe we do want to leave on the aside, for now, a height of the 400 pixels. Just to push it down and stretch it, or you can even go bigger if you need to make that fit. So something like that. One thing to point out is that if for some reason you're following this video to some degree and you notice that the list items break, that's most likely because your navigation rules don't have nav in front of them, and so they're applying the rules to every list. So the navigation list as well as the list that lives inside the aside. So all you need to do is notice that all of those live inside of these nav tags. So you just need to put nav in front of all the navigation there. If we look, we can see that the footer is no longer centered, and that's because the float on these two is affecting the footer. So we need to go into the footer itself, and we need to clear the float, and we'll just clear both the left and the right sides. Now you can see the footer is back and it looks fine, it looks normal, and this is taking up the right amount as it needs to be. If we delete this, it'll go back up, but we'll just leave it like this for now. So looks fine. We've got a layout, it's working well. Next thing we need to do is go on to the responsive rules. As we give this responsive rules, one thing that might help is to reference the responsive site and responsive basic. Those will give you ideas on how to do responsive rules. And we'll need to start by maybe cleaning this up just a little bit. So I'm going to go ahead and give my images some rules. I'm going to center those and just make them look a little better to start with. So we're going to first, images display inline, so they go next to each other in a line. So I'm going to talk to the images, all the images on the page, and I'm going to tell them to have a margin of auto, and I'm going to display them block, because like I said, they're displaying inline. So if we do a display and make them block, we can then do a margin of auto, which will read the amount of extra space there is, and it'll split it up evenly on the left and the right. So it'll center the images. So there's one way to center the images. You can see that the text here is right up to the edge, which I don't really like. So here on the section, I'm going to put in a padding, and we're going to put in 12 pixels all the way around. And you can see that kind of breaks the width, the flow here. So I'm going to have to fix that. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to drop this down to maybe 70%. And you can see now there's a little space around the edges, so it's looking a little bit better. This does not go all the way over to the edge here though, so maybe we'll need to fix that. We'll give this, just keep going until it looks fine. So 26, no, 27, breaks it, so we'll go 26, and that'll be good enough for now. So we've got our site. As I said, when we stretch it, it looks okay, but it just keeps on stretching. Like this thing will stretch forever, and the content gets really, really pulled out and it doesn't look that good. So maybe we should limit it so it stops stretching at a certain point. So let's do that next. So right off, before we give it any other rules, we're going to come in here, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put a container around everything inside of the body. So we've got our header all the way down to our footer. I'm going to wrap all of those in a div. And I'm going to call this container. And I am going to put that, close that off down here on the bottom. And it currently does nothing. But if we go in here to our style sheet, up here at the top, I can put in a note to myself. And this is for the header. And notes are really helpful so you know where your code is so you can fix things later. So here in the container, I'm going to say dot because it's a class, container. And just so we can temporarily see it, I'm going to give it a background color. And there it is. You can see it sitting there. And it's going to go the width of everything. In fact, we don't even need the background color for now. But we are going to give it a maximum width. So it can go as small as it wants, but at a certain point, when it hits a certain maximum width, it will stop growing. So I'm going to go ahead and tell that to stop growing at about, let's say 850 pixels. In fact, let's go a little bigger than that. Let's say 1200 pixels. It should stop growing. So if I take this, you can see it now will stretch and stretch and stretch until it hits 1200 pixels and it stops growing and it just goes to the left. Maybe I want it to stay in the center, so I will put in a margin of auto and save that. So now, when I start to stretch it, once it hits 1200 pixels, you can see it doesn't get any bigger, but it stays right there in the center of the page at 1200 pixels. It can go smaller, it just isn't going to go any bigger. So that's looking good. Okay, next thing we want to do is give it some rules. So as mentioned, you may want to reference this. So if we go into responsive basic, that'll give you some basic ideas on breakpoints. You need this tag inside your HTML, which already should live there. And if we look, it does. It's up there in the top if you use that skeleton. And then the CSS, you're going to use this for the different breakpoints. I already got it how I like it at 1200, so I'm just going to leave that one alone. But down at the bottom of your style sheet, make sure it's at the bottom. I'm going to put a rule. Whoops. And I am, whoops, there's a space there that shouldn't be there. Responsive rules, there we go. So down here, we're going to start going in and typing how that looks. So you're going to put in @media, and then you're going to put in I'm going to put in a maximum width. So this will apply at this width or lower of 979 pixels, right? And then I go ahead and put in my curly brackets, and then every rule I want to apply at that width or lower will have to be between those two curly brackets. So let's go see what we've got in here. And in fact, for the sake of time, rather than me putting in rules for all these different breakpoints, I'm just going to go right ahead and put one in for the smallest breakpoint. So I'm going to say at a maximum width of, I'm going to say 580 because my Chrome won't seem to go smaller than that, so maybe don't do yours at 480, do it at 580. But I'm going to go in and start making some different rules that happen here. I know that I want my navigation to look different at that size. So in fact, I'm going to go ahead and shrink this down to that size so I can see how it looks now, which is pretty bad. So navigation will go first. So let's do that. So I'm going to say nav. And you can see that this is displaying inline if we look in the navigation rules right here. So I'm going to copy that rule. I'm going to go ahead and paste it down here. I don't need the color on there. Go ahead and put, instead of inline, say block. And you can see that now, after adding that rule, that it is now displaying block, right? That looks good. So once we're bigger, it's this way, and when we get to a certain size lower, it suddenly will just go to block, which looks good. But I want it to be a little more distinct. So let's go ahead and add a hover state around that as well. So if we take this hover, I'm going to copy that, I'm going to paste that in there. Instead of changing the color to that, let's change the background color. So when we save it, you can see, whoops. When you save it, you can see that as we go over it, it changes quite a bit. So you can see exactly where you're at. We would then need a different color for the text so we could actually see it. Then we save that. Now when we go over it, you can see it perfectly fine, right? And you could make it so each of these, when they're just sitting there, is living in a block with a border between it or whatever you would like. But for now, that'll work, right? So it's definitely different as I change the size of this project. So let me go ahead and relaunch this. And you can see as I stretch it out, as soon as I get to a certain size, it drops and breaks down and is completely different than at the larger size, right? So in fact, let's give it one more rule here. Let's give it the navigation itself. Let's give it a border of 4 pixels, solid, and we'll go with, that's fine for a color for now. All right, and you get the idea. So you can continue to make it look different that way. These two columns are broken. They're not looking good at all. So you may need to adjust those. So let's go copy these rules. I'm going to paste those in. And let's talk to those and see if we can make them work. So I currently have this floated left. I'm going to put float none. I'm going to do the same thing here. I don't want that to float at all. I want them to stack that way. And I want them to be 100% width at this small size so that the viewer can see them completely. Oh, whoops, that was the height. And you can see that's working out pretty well. And you can center the content if you need to. I mean, the height, you could take the height and just put it at 100%, 100% or whatever you needed it to be. You take the height off completely, but you get the idea. So, right, you can see the sites like this as we go, and all of a sudden it crunches. You can see the navigation changes and the columns flatten out, so they're all stacked. So you need to keep adding different rules like that so that your site looks different at different sizes, so that somebody on a phone could see it differently than somebody on a computer. You can change the sizes of your text, all sorts of different things. When you are done with doing this, right, this is only one page of the site. I've just got one page here. If I go in to my final project here and I copy this and I paste it 4 times, I can then go in and rename these. And if you'll remember, we have an about, classes, projects, and contacts. So if I go in and rename these, so this will be my about page, classes, projects, and contact. Those should match those names right there, and they should all work just fine. So if I go ahead and open those, let me open one of those. In fact, let's go ahead and reopen that whole folder. And it's not showing them, so let's just do file open. I'm going to open up all of these new pages. There they all are. So I'm going to go into the About page, and right here where it says Home, I'm going to go put in About. And then on Classes, same thing. Now obviously you would be changing these much more than I'm doing right now. You'd be changing the content completely, possibly the layout. But now, when I go to this page and I click on About, you'll see it changes to the About page. Classes changes to Classes, Projects changes to Projects. So these are all changing pages. And then what you need to do is go in and change the content and the layout and things like that. And then you've got a full site. Once you are completely finished, you are going to take everything inside of this and you're going to zip it all up. Before that, however, remember you need to write a one-page report on your design decisions, what you think went well, what you'd do better if you had more time, and those types of things, and put that file inside of here as well. And when it's completely finished, you're going to right-click on your final project. You're going to send it to a zipped folder, and you're going to turn that in to me. If you have any questions, you can't get something to work, let me know, and we can contact on Teams, and I can look at your code, and I can try to help you fix it. Remember, again, don't copy exactly what I just did. That didn't look that great anyway. Come up with your own design and make your own design and make it look much better than that, and just spend some time on it. And good luck.